In our last show on Saturday, on our Intel brief, I briefly reminded viewers that there was some reports going around of a leaked classified American document that laid out a lot of information about a potential Israeli response against Iran. That has picked up a lot of steam over the weekend, and a lot of people have been really upset about that because, as the New York Times confirmed, it was a legitimate, valid document. It really was a U.S. top secret document. And that has a lot of people concerned, some upset, some worried for a number of reasons, because on the first of it, that means a top secret American document found its way into a Telegram channel that was just aligned with Iran, or at least associated with Iran to some degree or another. This group claims that it's not based with Iran. They say we just want honesty and truth and integrity, but it is something that's geographically located near Iran. Doesn't matter any of that part. The fact is that somebody in the United States gave a top secret document related to Israel to someone that is associated with Iran, and that by itself is a big issue. Now, listen, I was a whistleblower in 2012, and I shared some classified material only with people who were authorized to see it, i.e. members of the House and the Senate, and then I talked about other things that were not classified in an open case, which was authorized what we were doing, because I viewed that it doesn't matter what you actually think, you cannot violate the laws of classified documents. If you've been given you signed an agreement that says that you will not divulge classified material, and it doesn't matter what it is, you still have to obey the law, which I followed, and that's important. Even though sometimes this information is important, we still have to follow the law, and I'm a firm believer in that. But now then that it is out, we have to deal with the information on it. And the information says that the United States is aware that Israel has been doing substantial preparations for an attack against Iran in response to the 1 October missile strike that Iran did to Israel, which was itself in response to the assassination in their capital city during a presidential inauguration. So we have this big, messy situation. It's continuing on. We don't know where the United States is trying to find out where the leak came from. Israel is as they always are, just kind of mum on this stuff. They don't want to talk about it very much. But in conjunction with what President Biden said in, I think it was Germany on Friday, that he was asked specifically, do you know what Israel is going to do? And do you know when they're going to do it? He said yes and yes. And then, of course, when they said, what is it? He said no and no. He wouldn't tell anything, but he knows it. In conjunction with that release of that document, that confirms the likelihood that Israel is about to do something big. But here's now the problem. We'll leave the document issue aside for the moment and look at the ramifications of what that means, or what that document actually talks about. And what you see is the preparation to escalate the war another level, and Israel to go even more into a broadening a war and making the likelihood even stronger that the United States eventually gets sucked into this war. Here's the problem, both for the Israeli and the American leaders, and you're going to see a number of them here in the remainder of this episode here. Everybody wants to talk about what they're going to do to Iran and strike. Nobody wants to talk about what that means. Nobody has a strategy or a resource plan for how you're going to get to a positive outcome. It is easy to throw a rock. It's easy to launch a missile and break stuff. It is damn much more difficult to fix something. Now, you're not supposed to use lethal military power unless you're absolutely compelled to do so that your security is threatened if you don't use military power. And this is a conjunction. It's not one or the other. And if you use military power to bring something back into a condition you think is better, you've got to have a plan to how it's going to end better than it is now. Because, for example, you have a situation where someone's doing something you don't like, and you think, I've got all of this lethal power here I can use against them. There's a situation that exists here, and I don't like it. And so I want to use this power to try and correct it. Now, if you using that power creates a situation on the other side of using that power that's worse than the one you're facing now, it should be self-evident and is foolish to say I'm going to use military power anyway, because I don't like what's happening right here, right now. I'm going to use power that could cause much more damage and destruction and hardship later. And that, I think, is exactly where we are and exactly what we're heading into. And if you need any help, let me show you a few of the comments that some of these people are making, both Israel and the United States. First of all, I want to start off over the weekend with former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett was asked about what he's going to do or what he thinks Israel is going to do. He's a former prime minister, but he certainly talks with a lot of knowledge and context. And what he's going to talk about first is, man, I'm going to give a big gift to the people of Iran.
So Iran is at the epicenter of this global terror network. I like to call it the head of the octopus of terror. It's time for us to hit back. It tried to assassinate our own Prime Minister Netanyahu, at his home. He wasn't there at the time, and the home was not destroyed. But this is certainly unacceptable. I believe that we need to strike back at Iran's nuclear facilities and at Iran's regime, the regime of the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's a horrible and incompetent, corrupt, oppressive regime. The people of Iran, which are an amazing people, deserve much better also. So you could view it as a gift that Israel would be giving the Iranian people.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, just go ahead and kill all the mullahs, wipe out their entire leadership, hit their nuclear infrastructure, hit their oil infrastructure, whatever else you want to go after. And the people of Iran are going to rise up and thank you and give praise for what you're doing. I mean, does that sound familiar? Does that not sound similar to what we said in 2003, that we're going to go into Iraq and take out Saddam Hussein, and the people are going to love us, they're going to throw flowers and all this kind of nonsense, which we know how that turned out. It's very unlikely that any people are going to say thank you to someone coming in and killing their people, even if they don't like their leaders. I mean, we see that with Hamas in the Gaza Strip right now. Many of the Palestinians didn't like Hamas before, but compared to the people who were killing them in large numbers every day, guess who they're going to side with? And of course, there's always this rally round the flag kind of situation. We can have our internal disputes, but the minute someone from the outside comes in and starts, hitting us, well, then everyone's going to turn against the unified threat against them all. And that's self-evident. It's actually insulting that they want to make this comment that, we'll actually, be a gift to the Iranian people. Netanyahu's tried to make that sound. I've heard, and I think I'm even going to show one of the clips here of an American official who makes the same kind of pathetic, condescending statement that, we care about the people of Iran. You don't care about the people of Iran. Nobody in the Middle East, nobody in Iran, Israel, nobody in the United States cares about the people of Iran. That's just lip service. They don't. They care about themselves, and they want to try to make it sound like we actually are trying to help them out. It's a bunch of hogwash. Just look through it and see it for what it is. It's hardcore power politics by whatever means, either diplomatic, political, or military, to get their way. That's the truth of it. So let's just cut through the BS here. Bennett continued on to show that this is actually something that a lot of them have been wanting for a long time. You've seen, I think we've even showed some of in the past the clips from Benjamin Netanyahu when he's been at the United Nations, and he, shows this ticking bomb and all this kind of stuff, and he's constantly saying, the warning about Iran, but he didn't have the capacity to go get them. Well, now Bennett is saying this is a golden opportunity, one which they should not let pass by. Watch this.
We have the ability to strike the nuclear facilities, to strike the regime itself. I would not waste this opportunity on just symbolic strikes or things that make noise, but actually hit the octopus on its head. I also want to point out something really important. The United States of America is at risk from the Islamic Republic of Iran. American citizens are at risk. Iran has been trying to murder Americans on America's soil for the past several years. And Iran that will have a nuclear weapon will be a threat to the United States of America with ballistic missiles. So this is not a war for Israel. This is a war for the free world. Israel is at the forefront. We are willing to do the job. We do need America to provide us a back.
Okay, let's cut through the BS, folks. If you're pro-American, if you're pro-Israeli, let's at least cut through the BS. Israel is not doing this for the United States. Israel is not doing this to keep the world safe. This is exclusively Israel wanting to get rid of a pain in their butt that they've had for a long time. And we need to understand Iran is antagonistic to Israel. They have in the past said, wipe them off the face of the earth or whatever. You certainly can look into what they actually said and what it meant at the time. And it is more of an aspirational, an insult against Israel, not any kind of declaration of an intent. It's something they want to do. But I mean, who's going to take that into account? If you're the one on the receiving end of that, there's going to be antagonism between the two. Iran doesn't have the capacity to make good on that. That's what you need to understand. First of all, it's important to know Iran can never wipe Israel off the map. They would have to have a large land army that would somehow be able to cross multiple countries to get to Israel on top of their air and missile power and naval power and everything else that they may have. All other means of military power, they would have to have that in order to even make a legitimate threat. They don't have it. They don't. And Israel has nuclear weapons. Iran doesn't. Okay, let's make sure that's clear too. That's the reason why in that classified documents, there was a comment in there that we don't see any evidence in the United States that Israel is prepared to use nuclear weapons, i.e. we know they have them and we're monitoring their nuclear powered missiles. So we know that they have them. I think Jimmy Carter at one point admitted publicly that they do. So we know they do. Iran doesn't. Now, we've been claiming that we want to prevent Iran from having the nuclear weapons for many, many, many years and saying, the Middle East couldn't stand it if they did, and they would use it if they had it, but they never took it. They never made it. They had the capacity, but they have never started a nuclear weapons program. Now, you keep doing stuff like this, you will give them every motivation in the world to start a nuclear weapons program. And I think that secretly many people in the West and in Israel want that. They want to see this the nuclear weapons program started so that they can have reason to start. But you see, Naftali Bennett doesn't want to wait for that anymore. He's not worried about it. He said, just bomb them now anyway. But as many people have talked about, and as you need to know, it is not so simple to take out Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, you can hit a lot of them because they have a lot of stuff above ground. You can definitely cause a lot of damage. You can potentially cause nuclear fallout, which, by the way, could hit people in Israel. It could hit American troops, which we have scattered throughout the Middle East. It could reach some of our other friendly nations with some of the fallout. So it's absurd to even play with something like that we would initiate or support if Israel does it. So that should be the first point. We shouldn't do that. But even if you destroyed a lot of stuff above the ground, they have a lot of other things because they know the capability of bunker busters and the U.S. Air Force and the Israeli Air Force. So they have these things have designed to withstand that for a long time. And if they wanted to, they can. And there was a report in, I think it was just a week ago, in the Iranian press that the Iranian parliament is publicly starting to say, hey, let's rethink that, because there has been a fatwa by the Ayatollah for many years against having nuclear weapons because they claimed it was anti-Islamic or whatever. But now they're saying it's an existential threat. We need to have it. So by taking these kinds of actions, we could shove Iran into the position of starting the very nuclear weapons program we say we don't want them to have. Some are even speculating they may secretly already have some. I have no earthly idea. All I can tell you is that the last CIA report on this that I saw earlier this year concluded that they still had not made the decision to launch a nuclear weapons program, though their breakout time continues to shrink. That's important. They don't have it, but they have the capacity to do so relatively quickly should they decide to get that done. And it's a pretty low probability, I think, that we would be able to figure out if they made that decision before they actually had some sort of fissile material to potentially make one or more nuclear weapons. But that's where we're at right now. So if we want to cause trouble and push our adversary into a position where they feel they have no alternative because they're much less powerful than Israel and the United States, that the only thing they can do to defend themselves is to have a nuclear weapon. That's what we're supposed to be trying to avoid, but nobody seems to want to do that has any kind of influence in the West. So I just showed you Bennett. Now, you're going to see now here a few Americans saying the same kind of thing. And what it really sounds to me like, especially if you listen to some of the things Netanyahu has said in the past, it sounds like we're just reading off of their talking points. And that's going to start off with the news. Now, I'm going to show you some stuff that Mike Pompeo was on over the weekend on Fox News. And listen to the setup, first of all, by the anchor, because this doesn't sound like an American anchor. This sounds like somebody from Israel. And then Mike Pompeo doesn't sound like the former American Secretary of State, but he sounds more like the former foreign minister of Israel. Watch this.
Do you see this as Netanyahu's Churchill moment, where he even resisted the Biden administration telling him don't go into Rafah, and if he listened, Sinwar would potentially still be alive?
Well, Eric, there's no doubt about it. If the Israelis had followed the guidance, the demands and the threats from the United States of America, the Hezbollah leadership, the Hamas leadership, political leadership, Haniya was negotiating for the Hamas Iranian terrorists, they'd all still be alive, and the threat on Israel and the United States of America would still be out there. So good on the Israelis from doing what was necessary. That is to have the leadership in Iran determine that the costs of continuing this conflict are too high. No matter how many terrorists are taken out on the ground in Gaza or in Syria or in Yemen, as long as in Tehran the leadership believes that it can get away with this, that it can kill Americans, it can kill Israelis, it can conduct terror campaigns of the most barbaric proportion, and there'll be no cost imposed on the regime itself, this conflict will continue. We won't get the hostages home, and Israel will be insecure.
Are you kidding me? That is so pathetic. I'm sorry. As a former Secretary of State, you're supposed to have a level of respect, but my goodness, when you talk that kind of nonsense, that Israel will be insecure if they don't go after Iran, that's ridiculous. That's absurd. Iran is a middling power at most. They can cause nuisance and difficulties for all kinds of people in the region. But there's a lot of folks aligned against Iran, and they are balanced out. Saudi Arabia, some of the other Emirates are against them. Turkey has some antagonisms, etc. The United States, Israel, obviously. The region is more than balanced out. They've been in power since 1979, and they have shown that they don't have the power to dominate anyone in the region. They can cause trouble only, and that can be handled. But you take this course of action, and then you try to claim and paper over it by saying Israel is going to be insecure, because you're also saying it like that Israel is this innocent victim here. They didn't do anything at all. And all this is just these people, these terrible people in the region. And the only way to deal with them is to kill them all and to wipe them out, use military power. And that is one of the greatest failures and one of the biggest shames for Mike Pompeo. You were the supposed lead diplomat for the United States under the Trump administration. And the only way you know how to deal with anyone is to advocate military power. You weren't the Secretary of Defense, which is more like the Secretary of War is probably a better phrase for what you're behaving like. It's humiliating, because there are tons of ways that we could and should have dealt with on a diplomatic way Iran. And listen, diplomacy handled properly means give and take. It doesn't just mean compel and kill. That's how we do it these days. And that's not successful. It's never going to work. It's just going to make people hate you more and to take greater actions to try and harm you. Whereas a give and take diplomacy gives someone a motivation and incentive not to kill you, not to harm you, at least to lower it. That's how diplomacy in the centuries gone by has been effectively conducted. And those that are wise use that kind of activity to say, okay, we'll give you some of the things you want here, as long as you give us stuff we really want here. And if you give something good enough, they may give something that you really want here, i.e., some kind of stability and peace in the region. Now, you always have to have powerful capabilities to defend your interest, but that does not mean to go on the offense and to go after everybody you don't like, because it's a fool's errand. You're never going to succeed. You're never going to get there. You want to keep advocating that using lethal military force against all those you don't like, and all you're doing is compounding it. I saw it firsthand in Afghanistan on my fourth and final combat deployment. Everything we kept doing, all the people we kept killing in the Taliban, the increasing firepower we brought in, all this technological superiority we had, we kept killing these guys in large numbers, and they kept multiplying in larger numbers. It happened so many times. There's so many points where that's happened. And I mean, you don't have to look very far than, look back to our Vietnam. We tried to kill all the North Vietnamese. That ended up not working. They just continued to resist until finally we left, and the South Vietnamese side that we supported collapsed. Sounds familiar because that's exactly what happened in Afghanistan. We killed Muammar Gaddafi, and now then that country is still ripped in a basically civil war where there's two competing governments to this day. We killed Saddam Hussein. That didn't work out well at all. It spawned this years-long insurgency against our side. And today, Iraq is far more aligned to Iran than it ever was prior to that. So everywhere you want to look, when we've tried the Mike Pompeo version, it has led to disaster. And I want to show you one more piece of that same interview here, because Mike Pompeo also, again, sounding an awful lot like an Israeli official's paid spokesman, makes it sound like that Israel is totally innocent in all this, and all these other people are bad actors, and darn it, they just need to help. They just need some help. Watch this.
I don't know what targets they'll go for. I don't know how Israel will decide to respond, but I am convinced of this. The Israelis understand this as an existential threat to their nation. 1948 is the creation of the state, and the adversaries in Iran want that to go away. They're going to stay at this and do the necessary to protect and defend themselves, and they should be doing it without Vice President Harris talking about this being a potential genocide in Gaza. That's just fundamentally indecent and misunderstands who it was. It was the Iranians that caused all of the grief for the innocent civilians in Gaza. And until there is a resolution that gets security for them and for the globe, the Gulf State region, the Gulf State countries too, are going to see themselves as needing to hedge because the United States has simply refused to support its ally in the region.
The United States simply refused to support its ally in the region. What in God's name are you talking about? Have you seen the list of the things that we have given them? The things that we have handed over to Israel? The hundreds of American transport planes, the shiploads of stuff, the billions of dollars that we have given them. And you have the audacity to say that we have not supported our ally, even though they have done everything that we have asked them not to do, and almost none of the things we've asked them to do. And you want to argue that we've done enough. And then you also have the audacity to tell the vice president right now, and I could care less who you want to vote for here, but if you tell the vice president that it is something wrong, and I think that, what was the term he used? Like indecent to say that Israel is conducting a genocide. Now, all the time he's talking on that was one of the most interesting things and perverse. All the time that Pompeo was talking, Fox was showing all these scenes of IDF destruction, not in the Gaza Strip, not in the West Bank, not even in southern Lebanon, in Beirut. You were literally seeing these are not military targets. It's in the middle of the city. They're just burning down and wiping out portions of Beirut, just like they did throughout the entire Gaza Strip and continue to do so, making it into a moonscape. I mean, in many regards, in many places, it looks worse than Nagasaki and Hiroshima did after we dropped the nuclear bomb on them. I mean, this is what is passing for lack of support, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to produce anything of any value. It's just going to get a lot more people killed. And then to say that there's no genocide when there are scores of thousands and potentially hundreds of thousands of Palestinian people who have been killed in all these different areas, and the attacks we keep doing against the Houthis in Yemen. I mean, everywhere you want to look, there's just people being killed left and right. And to just dismiss that and say it's abhorrent to even point it out, I mean, then that makes you, Mike Pompeo, a complicit and an accessory. You are enabling them to continue doing this heinous thing. It's bad for the region. It's bad for Israel because it's not going to bring them peace, and it's bad for America. You are advocating policies that are bad for the United States of America, and why I resolutely stand against you and what you stand for, because you are some reason standing for Israel to do whatever it wants to do, just oblivious to the consequences. What is the end state here, Mr. Pompeo? Where is this going to go? How is it going to end? How is Israel going to win its war against the Houthis in Yemen? How is it going to win its war against Hamas and now the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip? How is it going to bring to end the violence in the West Bank that it's inflicting on these people? How is it going to win the ground war in Lebanon that it's already started? And how would it stop a war against Iran if they launch a bunch of missiles and kill a lot of people, which then causes the thing to blow up? How is this going to result in any end state? You don't have the military capacity. America doesn't have the military capacity to invade Iran. So we can't end that threat. You can just stir the pot up, and you can just make this back and forth missile barrage back and forth up the escalation ladder. You can certainly do that. But where's the end state? See, he's not even talking about that. He literally is only talking about the next step, the next phase, as though it has some kind of an end in itself. But it doesn't. Now, Mike Pompeo's not in power anymore. Now, he certainly could be again if Trump wins, but he's not right now. But let's look at some officials who are in power right now. And first of all, I want to go to Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who was on CNN. So it was on Fox. Now CNN has given airspace to the same thing.
I think that the United States needs to stand unequivocally by our ally there right now. There is really, we're on a precipice, I think, Jake, of a new era of security and freedom for Israel. And I think we're very close, I hope, I pray, to ending that conflict there. But we cannot equivocate. We can't appease Iran. Now is the time for a maximum pressure campaign against the head of the snake. It's not Hezbollah and Hamas and the proxies that are ultimately the threat. It is Iran itself. And I think we need to recognize that reality right now. So, look, we need to stand by Israel. This is a good versus evil conflict. It's not even close. Israel is a state. It is the most stable democracy in the Middle East. And Iran is a terrorist regime, and it works through terrorist organizations to do great harm to our allies. And ultimately, what they hope to do is to us. And that's a real threat to us right now as well.
Man, I probably don't even need to say it out loud, but I'm going to anyway. Who is the terrorist state? Who is the one that's inflicting terror on large populations? Gary was just showing you those scenes from Beirut. And obviously he shows you all the time the stuff that's going on in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank and now in Yemen. What power in the Middle East is using lethal military power all over the Middle East and killing thousands upon thousands of people? And again, you sound like a spokesman for the Israeli Knesset, not for the American population. What is America's vital national interest that we should facilitate and enabling the killing of large number of civilian people in all of those countries I just mentioned? Where is it? And further, even if you had some compelling reason that doesn't exist, you have no end state. So all you're doing by advocating this is just continuing the killing. And by doing that, you can just perpetuate the next round where they're going to try and kill the Israeli people. And of course, every time they respond, and I was just on a show not earlier today, actually, where that issue was brought up. They said, well, yeah, but look what the Hezbollah is doing. They did this, and they found out they had this in the tunnels, and the Hezbollah people, they found that all these weapons in the tunnel. Well, no kidding. What do you think they're going to do when they're oppressed as bad as they are, when they're attacked like all of these videos I keep showing you? Naturally, any human being is going to retaliate and respond. So this cycle of action and counteraction and violence and counterviolence will just continue on because there's no end state. There's no achievable military outcome until the parties are, I guess, almost bled dry enough to where they say, killing is not helping out because I keep getting killed in response. And let's try to find some accommodation to at least live in stability. I can't even rationally use the term peace because that implies so many things that's not even possible. the level of hatred and violence on each side right now, and I've seen it. The Israelis against a lot of the Arabs and certainly the Palestinians, the Iranians, is off the charts now. And I mean, it's not just Benjamin Netanyahu. There's many in the Israeli society that are open about this in public. They don't even hide it. And definitely it reversed and given back against Israel from many of the Arab side. So the hatred is so much because the palpable violence has been so high that I don't think anybody for the foreseeable future on either side is going to have any willingness to accommodate it and actually have peace with the other. That's going to take a long time, but we can't even get to the possibility of that until we first bring stability and an end to the violence. Then we can start worrying about trying to build bridges to successive generations of time in the future to where it is at least theoretically possible. But the course we're on right now is not going to do that. We're heading in a direction to where all we're going to do is keep expanding the violence. And now in this last clip I want to show you here, this is from former Secretary of Defense Cohen. I think he was also on CNN, where he at least has a little bit of honesty about the potential consequences, though it concerns me about how easy he is with the United States getting drawn into war.
Because we are going to continue to attack Houthis. The United States has done that. We are supporting Israel going after Hezbollah and also after Hamas. So there's an opportunity here for a peaceful resolution that will save you from being attacked by the Iranians, by the Israelis, and possibly by us, because if Iran strikes Israel and hits centers in Israel, I think all bets are off at that point. The United States will be in it. That's not something that the Israelis would not welcome, because I think Israel has for some time hoped the United States would help them go after Iran and take out their nuclear facilities and to decimate their military.
So you see, he's just like that. Yeah. And then, of course, we'll be sucked in and then we'll go and do this and destroy these facilities. And again, just like everybody else, he doesn't say anything about, and then what? You strike these nuclear facilities, you strike the energy facilities, you hit the IRGC military sites, and then what? How does that bring peace? He actually said, then we can have a chance for a peaceful solution after you've killed everybody, because that's what you'll have to do. You'll have to kill everyone. And that's never worked. It has never worked, and it's not going to work this time either. And all these people are going to do in their lust for blood is get more of it, and they're eventually going to shed our blood, because this has no happy ending, folks. So don't get caught up in listening to all these things and saying this is what peace through strength looks like. That is a lie born in the pits of hell. That is not how you get peace. That is how you get more war. That is how you get more people killed. It is a lie. Let me be crystal clear on this. This concept as acted on here that they're claiming peace through strength is going to strengthen the number of people who are against us. And it's going to get more American blood shed. It's going to end up getting more Israeli blood shed. And it's most assuredly going to get more Arab blood shed. Now, I know a lot of people in the West don't care about that. That's another problem, that we have some moral issues that need some deep introspection. I do. I care about all of the people. I care about the Jews. I care about the Arabs, whether Sunni or Shia. Don't care. Definitely care about American blood. And I don't want any of it shed. And it just angers me as a combat veteran, somebody who proudly served in the military, but who understands the limits of power and the misuse of power and the perverseness of actually making yourself worse by using the so-called strength. That's where we are right now. And we're watching to see what's going to happen based on all this leaked information, et cetera. But we're going to stay on top of it here for you. We have, looking at the other issue here, we have this afternoon, we have some other just disconnected from reality from senior American officials and some others about what's going on in the Ukraine war and where Russia and many others now allied with them are headed. We'll be with Andrei Martynov this afternoon at 3 p.m. Please tune back into us later. And I will see you on that episode of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.